exciting during the course of my research about the holiday now known as Juneteenth. I went to Oprah Daily, and if you want to go there, you can go there as well. https://www.oprahdaily.com. The headline reads, Juneteenth, its meaning, and when did it become a U.S. holiday? Tyrone Bowman, live. Let's talk about it. What is Juneteenth? Here's why we honor the federal holiday. And tonight, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about why we commemorate June 19th. Quote, according to oprahdaily.com. A key American historical event finally received federal recognition in recent years. June 19th, 1865, the day all people living in the United States, including the formerly enslaved, were officially granted freedom. On June 17, 2021, President Joe Biden signed a bill into law, making the day known as Juneteenth a national holiday. Reflecting what he also said about the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre weeks prior, Biden said the same sentiment at the White House signing for Juneteenth in 2021. Quote, great nations don't ignore their most painful moments. They don't ignore those moments of the past. They embrace them. Great nations don't walk away. We come to terms with the mistakes we made, and in remembering those moments, we begin to heal and grow stronger. End quote. Many of us in the United States have grown up with the idea that the 4th of July is about as American as you can get. People come out in droves to celebrate the holiday, which honors the adoption of the Declaration of Independence in 1776, with festive cookouts, fireworks, and red, white, and blue desserts. The national observance of Juneteenth provides a fuller and more accurate portrait of America's history beyond the July 4th celebrations. 1/3 of the people who signed the Declaration of Independence were slaveholders, including founding fathers. Thomas Jefferson. The famous document did initially have a passage that denounced slavery, but it was removed in part to please the South, which relied heavily on the slave trade. And 1 year later, in 1777, with the publication of the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union, the enslaved were legally considered property as opposed to human beings. With the debate regarding whether or not Africans were considered, quote, other persons, end quote, or property, continuing for decades to come. As such, July 4th was founded on an idea of freedom created by a group of men who either believed they were rightfully owned Black people or not willing to stand up to the atrocities of slavery in the United States. And as former First Lady Michelle Obama reminded us in her powerful 2016 DNC speech, it was the enslaved who built the White House, a residence that represents not only the presidency, but American democracy and freedom. Not recognizing Juneteenth erased these historical facts, glossing over the racist ideas and policies that were integral to founding our nation. In 2020, in the light of the national resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement amid the police killings of Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and Breonna Taylor, the holiday took on an even bigger meaning for many Americans. Many, for the first time, were seeking to honor Black lives lost in any way that they could in order to honor and acknowledge the historical struggles of the community. Quote, I think Juneteenth feels a little different now, end quote. Mark Anthony Neal, a Duke University African and African American Studies professor, told the New York Times, quote, it's an opportunity for folks to kind of catch their breath about what has been this incredible pace of change and shifting that we've seen, end quote. Below the history and important facts, or I'm going to talk about the history and important facts about Juneteenth, the now successful case for making it a national holiday and how it's traditionally celebrated. So, what is Juneteenth? Juneteenth, also known as Emancipation Day, takes place annually on June 19th. The holiday is a combination of the words June and 19th. On January 1, 1863, ahead of the third year of the Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which declared all enslaved people in the Confederate States, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, Texas, Arkansas, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia were free. But Lincoln's executive order did not fully abolish slavery in the U.S., as it didn't apply to those held as property in the bordering states who were loyal to the Union. Despite the proclamation in Texas, slavery was largely unaffected. The Confederates considered the state a safe place, the Confederates considered the state as a safe place for slaveholders, as it remained generally unoccupied by Union Army soldiers during the war, mainly because it was one of the furthest away from the border between the Union and the Confederacy, aka front lines of the Civil War. According to PBS, many rebels from neighboring cities would flee to Texas with their illegally enslaved people. But on June 19, 1865, 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, and just 2 months after Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered, with the Union Army winning the war, Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, to take control. He issued General Order Number 3 to inform enslaved people that they were free and that the Civil War was officially over. This is why we celebrate Juneteenth, because it honors the day all of the enslaved were made aware of the Emancipation Proclamation and were officially legally released from their bonds. Later that year, in December 1865, the ratification of the 13th Amendment formally abolished slavery in the United States. It read, quote, "Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction," end quote. Sam Collins of the National Trust for Historic Preservation and co-chair and president of the nonprofit the Juneteenth Legacy Project, told the New York Times about what he considers to be a common misconception. He is, quote, "a lifelong Galveston resident," end quote, according to the publication. Quote, "Juneteenth was recognized as a state holiday in 1980, but our families have been celebrating Juneteenth since 1865, end quote," Collins told the Times. "I think what is so often lost is the story of the ancestors and elders that kept this history going by acknowledging the day even when the larger society wouldn't acknowledge it. Juneteenth didn't become important because it became a national holiday, and it didn't become important in 2020 after the unfortunate murder of George Floyd. It has always been and important to the former enslaved and their descendants." I'm going to show you a portrait of fugitive slaves who were emancipated. This is a real photo during the Civil War upon reaching the North. According to Getty Images, this photo is believed to have been taken in Freedom's Village in Arlington, Virginia, in the mid-1860s. At the time, the village served as a temporary shelter for runaway and liberated slaves. Now, this is a real picture, y'all. It's not something that's Photoshopped. This is real. And I want to leave this up here for a minute. Okay, now let me get back to the article. Now, let me just say this before I continue, because this video is not going to be taken down. It's going to stay up here. If this bothers a certain segment of America, then that's just too bad, because they have every holiday under the sun for their purpose, to do what they choose to do. And if you ever read Frederick Douglass's letter about, quote, why I can't celebrate your 4th of July, end quote, you'll understand our people, our ancestors were still enslaved as America celebrated their independence. It didn't include the slaves. Over 4 million of our ancestors were still considered property. They were still bought and traded on the stock market. Why do you think they call it the stock market? Because the stock was the slaves. Male, female, young, old, in between. Let's get back to the article. It's the first new federal holiday since Martin Luther King Jr. Day was established back in 1983. Further, it arrived at a time when multiple states were passing laws limiting what can be taught about race and American slavery in schools. Ironically, Texas, the first state to lead the charge in naming Juneteenth a formal state holiday in January 1980, was among the states in which lawmakers introduced multiple measures intended to limit how and what teachers could say about the history of slavery in the U.S. It was only in 2018 that the Texas Board of Education finally voted to acknowledge in school curriculum that slavery was a, quote, a main cause, end quote, of the Civil War, like down in Texas, the racist, down in Florida, the racist governor, critical race theory and all that kind of foolishness that they're talking about. And they're claiming that woke is there. No, woke is alive and well, and it's not going anywhere. The reason why a certain segment of America don't like to hear the term woke, because it means that Black people are well aware of their constitutional rights. They're well aware of who they are. They're well aware of what America has always stood for. And around the world, there are no people who are more persecuted than Black people to this day. Prior to the 2021 law signed by Biden, Washington, D.C., and 48 states had passed legislation to recognize Juneteenth, though only a few states made it a paid holiday, where all workers were given the day off like July 4th. In the wake of global fights for recognition and equality with the Black Lives Matter movement in June 2020, both Virginia and New York declared Emancipation Day an observed state-paid holiday. Corporations like Target, Nike, Twitter, the NFL, and Hearst magazines, which publishes Oprah Daily, have also declared June 19th a company holiday. If Juneteenth falls on a Sunday, the following Monday will be an observed legal holiday. If it falls on a Saturday, the preceding Friday will be an observed legal holiday. Hawaii became the 49th state to formally recognize the day on June 16th, 2021, the same day Congress voted to approve it as a national holiday. And in February 2022, South Dakota became the 50th state to make Juneteenth an official state holiday when Governor Kristi Noem signed a bill. Kristi Noem, she was the governor, and now she is the Homeland Security Secretary within the Trump administration. Wait a minute. Let me get back to my article. I just lost it. I'll get it back. Give me a minute. Okay, I got back my feed. So let me pick up where I left off at. Welcome to Tyrone Bowman Live, everybody. I hope you subscribe to the channel while you're here. Talking about Juneteenth. Wow, I read a lot already. I didn't know I had gotten that deep into this article. All right, here we go. Now I'm picking up where I left off at. You know, as the old folks would say, the devil is a liar. Hold up here. Give me a minute. I got to get back to my article. Well, if you don't like what I'm talking about, get the hell off the page, Bennett. You don't have to be over here. I didn't ask you to come. Now, right back at you. Take your racist behind and go over there to the white racists channels. See ya. And don't let the door hit you on the way out. Hold on here. Okay, I think I got it now. Bam. Opal Lee, a longtime activist and advocate for Juneteenth to become a national holiday, was one of the leaders of the effort with her Change.org petition for the cause, gaining over 1.5 million signatures. In February 2021, the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act was reintroduced by lawmakers in the House and Senate, following in the footsteps of Texas Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, who introduced a resolution for Juneteenth to be recognized as a federal holiday, gaining 200 co-sponsors in 2020. According to Time, 2021's efforts were led by Senator Edward J. Markey. Quote, "For too long, we have tried to whitewash our nation's history instead of confronting the uncomfortable and painful truth," end quote. He said in a statement to CNN, "This legislation to make Juneteenth a federal holiday is but one step we can take to begin to right the wrongs of the past and ensure equal justice in the future." South Dakota was the only state to never legally recognize Juneteenth until February 2022, when Governor Kristi Noem signed a bill making Juneteenth an official state holiday. This came after repeated efforts by the South Dakota Senate to pass a bill to make Juneteenth a working holiday, but it was blocked in the House by a vote of 31 to 36 in March 2021. The creator of the holiday's flag, Ben Hyatt, worked on it with illustrator Lisa Jean Graft and reportedly with others. For so long, our ancestors were considered citizens of this country, Haight told Capital B News, but realistically and technically, they were citizens. They just were deprived of being recognized as citizens. So I thought it was important that the colors portray red, white, and blue, which we see in the American flag, quote, end quote. He also weighed in on the debate about whether or not the Juneteenth flag should be used to commemorate the holiday, given that some see the American flag as supporting those who marginalize Black Americans. Some of us were raised to recognize the American flag. We salute the American flag. We pledge allegiance to the American flag, Heath told Capital B News. We had relatives who went to war to fight for this country. We put a lot into this country even when our ancestors were enslaved. They worked to help make this country an economic power in the world. The flag's appearance was reportedly revised in 2000, and the significant date, June 19, 1865, was added to the flag in 2007. But despite those being the formal colors of the holiday, you'll also see people honoring Black Independence Day with red, black, and green. These are the colors of the Pan-African flag, which was created in 1920 and encouraged by the leader of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and Jamaican activist Marcus Garvey. This flag honors people of African diaspora and also symbolizes Black liberation and freedom. Juneteenth is celebrated across the country among Black families and friends with festivities, parades, concerts, and more. Jubilant annual celebrations also take place where it began in Galveston, Texas. Because of the holiday's southern roots, barbecue is a must, and red foods like strawberry soda and red velvet cake are traditionally served. Crimson is a symbol of ingenuity and resilience in bondage. According to the New York Times, Steve Williams, president of the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation, told USA Today that reading the Emancipation Proclamation is one way people commemorate the holiday. Among our practices, including beauty pageants. And for anyone who isn't Black but would like to recognize Juneteenth, the holiday is a great day to honor and embrace Black culture, through its art and history. You might want to take the opportunity to learn more about major firsts from Black women. Read a book by a Black author, catch a film that honors Black life, or support Black-owned businesses. But most importantly, remember to engage in these not just on and or around Juneteenth, but all year. It's always a good time to celebrate the independence of everyone in our country, quote, close quote. And there are some holidays that I like to observe, just like everybody else. So let me go to the comment section. You determine that for yourself, Bennett. Hell no. There were no Black slave owners. What are you talking about? All right, ladies and gentlemen, Juneteenth, it's all going down on tomorrow. So check it out. Enjoy it. Be responsible. Let's do it in a decent way so that everybody can enjoy it. And in that way, I'll be ready to celebrate the 4th of July. Till next time, never surrender, never quit.